morning, everyone, and welcome to our weekly SonRise Project call. As always, I'm so glad to see all of you here this morning on this beautiful Sunday morning where we're together in a safe space, dedicated on learning and sharing and helping one another as we create loving, compassionate spaces to heal ourselves and our families. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This morning, I am so excited to have a very special guest. Her name is Dr. Christi Hay with us to share all kinds of fabulous information as many of us get ready to start the school year. Some of us have already started the school year. And Dr. Christi Hay is an incredible pediatrician. She happens to be my pediatrician. She's also a wonderful soror friend. And we have known each other for many years. I'll tell you a little bit about her before we jump into our topic for today. Dr. Christi Hay is a native of California who now calls the Washington metropolitan area home. She received a bachelor's degree in human biology from Stanford University, a master's degree in public health from the University of Michigan, and her medical degree from the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Dr. Hay completed a pediatric residency program at Children's National Medical Center in Washington, D.C., and she is a board-certified general pediatrician, the best ever. She's been our pediatrician for many years, and she is more like a pediatrician and sister friend, keeping it real all of the time. Dr. Hay has worked in academia for the George Washington University as an assistant professor of pediatrics. In that capacity, Dr. Hay taught pediatric residents, medical and physician assistant students. She also worked in private practice in the Spring Valley area of Washington, D.C. for several years. And she enjoys all aspects of pediatrics with a special interest in developmental delays, early childhood literacy, breastfeeding, reactive airway disease, asthma, nutrition, and fitness. And as I mentioned, Dr. Hay is an incredible pediatrician. She's a wonderful mentor. She's an incredible friend. And she has been with us, my family, on our journey with several areas. I'm not going to call them challenges, but several areas for many years. So I'm excited to have you here, Dr. Hay, and thank you for saying yes. Thank you for getting up and being here with our village. So welcome.
Thank you, Kelli. It is an honor. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm glad we were able to find a time for me to come and share with your SonRise community learning differences.
Yeah.
So as Kelli mentioned, I'm a general pediatrician. I just want to kind of set the table in terms of my lens, in terms of learning differences. So I take care of kiddos from newborn to 20-ish, 21. And my job, kind of high level, right, is to help kids and families be physically and emotionally well, mentally well, so that they can become productive adults, right? Mm-hmm. So part of that process, a big part of it is that kids have to navigate school. And during that, issues can come up. They can have school problems. And what we're going to chat about today is kind of, what does that look like? What are school problems? As a parent, what should you be looking for? What do you need to ask the teachers about? What do you need to talk to your pediatrician about? How can they be a resource to partner with you as your child navigates school in order to become this productive human, right? As a kiddo, there are things that our society says that they have to know in order to become an adult and to be a productive citizen. Some of that will come easy, and some of it will be a challenge. And so it's those challenges we need to provide support for. And so how do we do that? And
Mhm.
what are those challenges? So that's what we'll chat about today.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And I want to talk specifically just so we can ground people in, what are some types of learning differences and when do they typically show up? Or when do people start coming to you saying, hey, I think something might be a little different?
Yep.
Can you share something around that area? Or share
Absolutely. Thank
something?
you. Great question. So, learning differences. So, you may hear a lot of different terminology. Right now, there's a lot of usage of neurocognitive diversity, right? Just basically saying that kids come to us different. Everyone is awesome, everyone has their gifts, but I think of it as, but their neurons are firing at different rates and different speeds, right? So it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. One of the words I really don't like is smart. I don't think anyone is smart. You just don't come here smart. I think your brain can be firing really fast, soon, and often, or maybe it's firing a little slower, but it can pick up, right? So, so that's that neurocognitive diversity. So you may hear that, you'll hear learning differences. You may hear, some people will call it school challenges, but all of it's the same thing, usually referring to maybe a speech delay. If we're talking about a little kiddo, maybe they're having issues with some fine motor. As you get into school, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, specific learning disorder or specific learning disability. They're used interchangeably for reading, specific learning disorder for writing, specific learning disorder for math. Now, you'll hear those terms more often now, but back in the day, you may have heard people talk about dyslexia. Remember that I'm gonna date myself. If you used to watch Cosby, there was that whole episode about Theo and having learning challenges and finding out when he was in college that he had a learning disability, okay? And they called it dyslexia. We don't really use that term as much anymore, but specific learning disability for reading, all right? Executive function disorder. So those are some of the terms that you may hear when we're talking about this neurocognitive diversity, learning differences. There are others, but those are the ones you'll hear the most.
Why don't people use dyslexia anymore? Like you said, we don't use that as much.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's because it's learning is like a bell curve, and there's mild, moderate, severe, and dyslexia just kind of like when we first learned about autism was the extreme end. And we've learned more that there is more to it. It's more of a spectrum, and you can have mild symptoms and still have a specific learning disorder or disability for reading, but not look like that dyslexic that is really struggling, right?
Mhm.
So it's just providing more space under the umbrella, right?
Mhm.
For the different things that we're seeing, right? So if you're only focused on the extreme, there are all these kids over here suffering, kind of wondering what's going on with me, and we're missing.
Right. Right. How does it present itself? Especially like, when does it typically present itself and some of these learning differences that you're
Yeah.
talking about?
So learning differences are hardwired. And I want folks to know that.
Mm.
One thing that kids are not, and the reason why I'm a pediatrician, I love kids, working with families, kids are honest. And even though parents feel like, oh no, they're pulling my leg and they're lazy, kids are not lazy. Kids want to please. And so if something is going on where you're like, oh, they're just hard-headed, oh, he's just lazy. I hear that way too much. Oh, he's just lazy. He's just not focused. He just wants to play. It's usually he. or she, she just has her own way of doing things. That is usually the red flag. Kids want to please. They want to do well. And so especially when they're young, okay, and when they get older and they get more cognitive skills and they start to learn how they can, manipulate the situation, that's a different situation. But they want to be successful. And please the adults around them. So when things are challenging to them, they avoid it. And it can be simple things, right? So it can be a kind of very obvious in a different space. Physical example is I'll get a 4-year-old and the parent will say, oh, I'm asking about developmental milestones. Can they ride a scooter? Oh, we have a scooter, but, that's just not his thing. He just, he much rather us, carry him. That's usually a core weakness. It's not that he just doesn't like the scooter and that's not his thing. He can't do it, so he avoids it. That's what kids do. Okay. So that's usually what's going on. But kids aren't lazy. And that's a big thing that I like for parents to know. And they're not stubborn. They're avoiding because something is hard for them to do. And it can be specific, because parents will say, oh, well, they can focus on they can memorize every song, every rap song that comes on the radio. They can focus. Yeah, they can focus on the thing that they want to do. Absolutely. But as a society, we've said, oh, well, you need to be able to read and with certain fluency, and you need to be able to code. You need to be able to sit and focus and learn and attend. And so if you're not able to do those things, then you're not going to be this productive adult that I'm trying to get you to be. And so that it can show up early because it's hardwired and it's always there. And it's a matter of degrees. So usually, Kelli, parents are starting to get the vibes like around 4, 5, 6. Once they venture school, you can compare them to their peers and kind of go, oh, that's kind of interesting. That kid can sit and listen to that whole story. And my kid has never done that, right? They're constantly moving.
Constantly moving.
And I feel like I'm always talking to them and redirecting them constantly where I feel a little tired. Okay. That is not typical. And so that may be something that you want to present. A lot of times, Kelli, once kids are in school, teachers will identify it. And the reason why they do is, right, their job is they see a bunch of kids, right? They see the bell curve. They see the kids that are able to kind of follow directions, attend, transition. These are things, complicated things that kids have to do. They see the kids that aren't able to comprehend, attend, transition. And so they're going, that's interesting. And they may have really advanced language skills, but man, they cannot move from the circle to get in line to go outside. Can't do it. But they can talk to you as if they're in second grade, right? So, and people get really like blown away with kids that have high language acumen, right? Strong language skills. And we're like, oh my gosh, you're so fabulous. Yeah. They are, but they may still have issues, challenges in other areas. They may not be able to focus. They may not be able to organize. That's your executive function. They may have issues with reading and sounding out words. So all of that can be true at the same time. And that's what a pediatrician should help you understand, that yes, everything that you see is absolutely right, but we can also have this truth as well.
Right.
In terms of the learning difference.
Right. And then what I think may happen, I'll speak from personal experience, that first grade teacher that says, Johnny can't sit still and doesn't make any eye contact. But then it's shocked that Johnny actually can relay exactly what you just said. Just may not make eye contact. They might be, digging in the carpet and using his, fidgeting. However, heard every single thing he said and can repeat every single thing you said. And so that need to move, the need to use his hands is something that needs to be addressed and
Yes.
worked through, not in a negative way. So I remember distinctly in that first grade conversation and then saying, okay, well, maybe we should have, an opinion, get an opinion. And then it was, yes, and you can get some, you can change his diet, you can, do these things, but there's also medication. And so a lot of us are against, taking a pill, taking medication. Um, and because there's such stigma, I think, or there's such concern around that, I'd love for you to talk about that as you see parents, especially with young ones or even middle schoolers or high schoolers that say, okay, we probably should address this. What do you recommend for people? And what are your thoughts on, taking the pill for hyperactivity or something that, helps stabilize a mood?
So great question, Kelli. But I'm going to kind of peel the onion back a little bit because you mentioned something that you did where I usually find the first obstacle, and that was the testing. And
Yeah.
so just getting to finding out how does my kiddo's brain work is the first step. So you may start to have a feeling, or you may be clueless. And I would say it is not uncommon for the parent to be clueless. Okay. It really, and so, but who always knows, trust and believe is the kid. The kid always knows something's going on. Something is going on with my brain. They are seeing their peers understand, sit, focus, read, whatever the situation may be, but their difference is, I can't do that. The kid always knows. And so I make sure that the parent knows that. Okay. You may be late to the party. They know something is going on with my brain. And so when either your kid tells you, because I've had that happen several times, or you talk to your teacher and they mention areas of concern, please, when you have a parent-teacher conference, always ask, what are the areas of improvement? What do you find their challenges to be? Because truth be told, people don't want to say negative things about your kiddo, all right? And so you may need to prod them for that information. And it may be different because kids act differently in different situations. And when they're with you, they're one-on-one. When they're in a classroom, there's a group of folks there, there are different adults there. So their presentation may be different. So number one, I want you to kind of hear and receive that information that you receive from the teacher at the parent-teacher conference. Doesn't mean that it's truth, but you need to receive that and go, okay, that's a data point. Talk to your pediatrician about that, and hopefully you have someone that is interested in school issues. If not, there are other resources. You can talk to a school counselor. If you have a friend that is a therapist, talk to other parents that may have kids that have had learning differences to see what their lived experience was, to see if it kind of resonates with what you're seeing. And if you're in that space, testing is the next piece. Now, there are some things a pediatrician can do if it looks like it's a pretty cut and dry attention deficit hyperactivity situation. But usually that is paired with something else, executive function, where you have issues with organization, or maybe a specific learning issue for reading, writing, or math. Maybe there's anxiety, depending on how old the kiddo is, because they've been living with this thing, realizing something's not right. They're getting anxious. And so sending them to have testing, whether that's either through the school system, because some school systems will do it, or private, is the next step. We need to figure out, how does their brain work? We want to understand, how do they process information so that we then can use that to change the environment, the learning environment, so that the kiddo can be successful. The issue is not the kid. The issue is the environment. Their brain is awesome. The environment, may not be conducive to how their brain functions, and some changes need to be made so that they can be successful.
Right.
Okay? So testing is number one.
Can I ask you about the testing piece? Because we were so fortunate to have people that we trusted to do the testing and then to deliver the information and then to say, you know, as I'm a doctor, but I'm also your friend, and, you know, really helped us through that. And yourself and Dr. Linda McGee and others, you know, who either did the testing over the years, or, like I said, delivered the information and helped us work through, you know, the fact of the matter that nothing's wrong with them. They are who they are. And I love that you just said it, and they're wired already. And so it's our job to look at their beautiful minds and say their beautiful mind might be different, and that's okay. But my question is, how can people find those people to do the testing, the experts to do the testing, and ensure that there's someone that we can trust with the information?
That's a great question, Kelly. So, because what is true and what you're alluding to is all testers are not the same.
Right.
And so I've learned that over time. Now, something that is unique about me as a pediatrician is that I read those reports. I call and talk to testers because learning differences is my jam, right? So if you have kids, you have a pediatrician. Pediatricians, just like any other profession, there's certain things that just like get you jazzed. And so you go all in. And so for me, it's learning is one of them, right? So I do probably more than your typical pediatrician in terms of follow-up and reading and trying to understand what the report says. And they're all not the same. I do have folks that are like my favorite people. As much as I possibly can, I try to get Black kids in front of Black testers. And so I have non-Black testers that I think are really, really good as well, because their reports are thorough. They're well trusted in the community. They're known to have lots of integrity. And so that is important. I have read poor reports that were not helpful and very expensive. So hopefully your pediatrician can help navigate you through that space. And you know, folks that know me, I don't feel as if I have to like hold on to a resource. So I tell people, you know,
right. That's what the whole
all the time. I'm
of,
pretty transparent. Right. So but yes, that is true. So usually you get it from either your pediatrician. A lot of times folks talk to other families that have had a kiddo with a learning difference, asking them, who did they use? Did you like the report? Did you like the follow-up? You know, did you have a family discussion? Did you like how that information was presented to your kiddo? And that's another issue. So a question that I get, Kelly, is, should I tell my kid? Should I tell my kid that their brain is different? Like I said, they already know. And a lot of times it is reassuring and kind of releases a pressure valve for them to know, like, yeah, you're right. Your brain is different, and this is what you need in order for you to be successful. And they're kind of like, oh, I knew something was going on. And so it's helpful. Parents get caught up in their own adult stuff, right? Labels. I hear parents, I don't want my kid to be labeled. Da, 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 da. I understand all of that, especially in certain academic spaces, right? Public schools need to use labels because with labels come funding. And so you can't get caught up on the label. If we need that funding to follow the kiddo, we're going to play the game to get that. All right. You know who your kiddo is. You name them, you love them, you raise them. Don't get caught up on the fact that they put asthma or specific learning disability reading, because that's where those SSI dollars follow that in a public school space. Okay. Just want to put that out there. In a private space, they probably won't, there's no formal labeling, but that diagnosis helps get you accommodations and things adjusted in that private space. So naming things is important. You have to be clear with your kiddo, providing them tons of reinsurance that it is not who they are. This is how their brain works. And we need you to, do these accommodations in order for you to be successful. So that testing piece, having a good person do the testing, conveying that testing information in an age-appropriate way to your kiddo. And if you need help with that, your pediatrician should be able to help you with that. The tester should be able to help you with that as well. Because sometimes parents just can't do it because, you love your bugs and it's just a little too much. I get that. Other folks should be able to help you with that.
I think not attaching the stigma to it is so important. And I think being able to say, now we know what it is. And it's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
That's the first step of healing, is at least knowing and acknowledging.
Exactly. And so then, Kelli, to your question, behavioral management is number one for everything. So you're tutoring up, you're getting behavioral therapy, usually for the parents. Let's be clear on that. So a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old is not going to therapy. That is parenting. Okay. All right. That is the parent changing the structure of how you interact with your kiddo. That's behavioral therapy. It's an older kid that's doing cognitive behavioral therapy. It's an older kid that's doing play therapy. It's an older kid that's doing play therapy. Okay. We're like 9, 8, 9,
Right.
10. But when we're in that pre-K to second grade space, that's parenting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parenting with patience. That's the key.
Exactly.
It's patience, because that is hard when you're like, ooh.
It's learning how to talk to your kid. It's learning how to restructure your words, right? And so that is number one, because the first thing people think of is medication, but there's a bunch of stuff. And at the bottom is medication.
Right.
Okay. And so now in spaces where they don't have the parenting classes, the therapist, the tutor, in those spaces, medication is all they have. So that's their first line. But if we're blessed and fortunate to be in spaces where we have this other layering, which we are, and I'm in the DMV, those are the first things.
Yeah.
So behavioral management, tutoring up. If your kid has a specific learning disability, let's say for reading, getting that special type of reading therapy, right? The OG, which stands for the Orton Gillingham, frequently is what you would do. And then if you have a kiddo with ADHD, if we're doing all the things and they're able to maintain their academic success, that's what this is all about, right? Going to the very beginning, trying to make these productive adults that need to navigate school and do all of the subjects that we as adults say that kids need to know. Some of them they'll love, some of them they won't. And that's when their issue, that's where their difference will show itself. So if they're navigating their difference with therapy, with tutoring, with parental reassurance and doing well, we're done.
Yeah.
We monitor.
Right.
But if you're doing all of those things and my kid is struggling and they're not able to be successful and it's a workout, it's exhausting to get through the day for them. It will be for you, but I'm concerned about my kiddo. It's exhausting because they're using so much energy trying to keep it together. That's when medication needs to be discussed with either a psychiatrist or your pediatrician.
Right. Thank you. That's Such great advice. I was thinking through my journey and I could go on and on there, but there's some questions. There's a question that says, how is testing for neurocognitive differences in a young adult or adult different than, I guess, younger children?
So they'll do different scales. So the scales for learning differences are based off of age. And so a psychologist does this testing, and or a neuropsychologist. And so they have different scales, different assessments that they'll do based off of the age
Mhm.
of the client.
Right. And there's another question. Dr. Christi, can you please say more about why it's important for Black kids to be in front of Black testers?
Well, through the pandemic, right? The study came out that said what Black folks already knew, right? That women that had Black women that had Black OBs had better morbidity rates, right? Less morbidity, less mortality. So we already knew that to be true, but that study came out during the pandemic. And so as much as possible, I like to try to put Black kiddos in front of Black testers for several reasons. One, parent comfort. So I think parents feel more comfortable being in front of a good Black tester. And I say a good one because all of them aren't good. So a good Black tester, just like everything else. Every white one's not awesome. Every Black one's not awesome. Not every Asian one's not awesome. Let's just be clear about that, right? It's not just Black folks. So it's the tester. So the parent comfort, and as a Black provider, which study shows, you kind of bring to the environment your lived experience as a Black person, as a Black professional, understanding the things that you have to kind of navigate in order to sit across from the client, and you kind of bring that with you. And so that common history in terms of racism, if it's a woman, sexism that we share, is helpful when kind of getting a holistic picture of who is this kid and how are they being seen in the academic space.
Right.
So I think that's important. The testers that I refer people to, I think are cognizant of that. And it's been great. Not always necessary, because again, I have several non-Black testers that have managed Black children for me, and they're great. Their evaluations are fantastic. So it just depends.
Just depends. Okay. There's another question or a comment from one of our previous guest speakers, Dee. She says, I agree. As parents, we set the foundation and expectations of how our children should be handled with care, patience, understanding, etc. Inviting outside intervention too early in their development could have huge implications later in life. I'm glad I avoided this with my son. That's interesting, Dee. I'd love for if you're able to come off of mute and share more there. Because what I think I'm reading in your comment is that you invited outsiders, maybe outside of your pediatrician space, in later, or maybe did testing later. Is that what that means?
Hi. No, I was just
Good
speaking
morning.
to the piece about the therapy. Actually, well, my son will be 22 in a week, and we actually never did ABA with him. Actually, I didn't know about that until much later, but we did focus on the socialization for him, because initially back when he was young, they would not diagnose a child before 5 with anything specific for like autism, those things. So he started out with a specific learning disability. I think it was developmental disability. Then it went to specific learning disability. And then the intellectual disability didn't come until like middle school. Until like he was in the 6th grade. But when she was speaking to the therapy when they're 2 or 3 years old, I look at some of the people that are going through the same process that we went through now. Their kids are getting diagnosed as toddlers, right now. They're being encouraged to get medication now. They're getting encouraged to go through this ABA therapy. And I'm hearing parents talk about how they disagree with some of the methods that are, that their kids are having to go through in order to comply or be successful in that therapy. And I don't remember having those challenges of having to disagree with how I was choosing to socialize or raise him. And I think that makes things very, very difficult when you're already conflicted as a parent that has a neurotypical child, but having a child that, it's kind of early to know whether it really is a disability, because this was a boy. My son, it's a boy. And, boys do have more energy. Boys do have, he was a middle child. There were so many, like birth order, like there's so many things that could have affected his behavior at that time. And so jumping the gun could have, had other implications had it not really been a disability. It could have been being the only boy at the time. So I did not bring that intervention in early. He had speech therapy and OT and those things in school, but I just meant like medication, like he's still not on medication. And I'm glad I did not do that, because we learned to work with him on, managing, expectations, we made, his environment, people learn to accept him for who he is. So that's what I meant. Like we did not invite those other things like medication and those in early. So that's pretty much what I was talking about. So I was just agreeing with Dr. Hay.
And Kelli, if I may, so what she's referring to, just so that we're all on the same page, it sounds as if um, your child may have had autism, because you mentioned ABA. So ABA, and we're specifically not addressing that type of learning issue because it's a little different than just a learning disability. ABA is a type of therapy that some children with autism may receive. And so that is the ABA therapy. And she is right. We are now, as pediatricians, screening for autism spectrum disorders, which we weren't doing when her kiddo was this age, at 18 months and 2 years of age. And those screens help us determine the kids that need to be in front of a developmental pediatrician. For them, they are the folks that do the evaluation to determine whether a kiddo is on the spectrum. And just as I mentioned at the top, with the spectrum, with these learning differences, when we were talking specifically about specific learning disability for reading and why we just don't say dyslexic anymore, is the same reason why we just don't say autism anymore, because you can see a range and different folks respond to different therapies, whether that be ABA, medication, behavioral management. So everything that she mentioned, I think it was D, is true. And there has been a change in how we approach autism spectrum disorders.
Thank you for that clarification. Very helpful. Appreciate it. And thank you, Dee, for popping on. There's another question. If one child has been tested and diagnosed with ADHD, should siblings also be tested?
So no, but you're monitoring for symptoms. Each kid, as you know, if you have more than one, they're different. And so you may have one that has a learning difference, another one that doesn't have a learning difference. And you can see when you have that diversity within your home, you can really start to see, oh, wow, yes, their brains do work differently. And then when you are reflective on that, you usually can find it, because it's hardwired in yourself, in your spouse, in your siblings, in your aunts, uncles, your mom. So no, just because you have one kiddo doesn't mean everyone blanket gets testing. You're looking and monitoring for symptoms, for school issues. How are they navigating the space? If they're not having any issues and you're talking to the teacher and they're not giving you feedback of any concerns or challenges that are concerning for a learning difference, they don't need to be tested.
Great. And so there's no cookie cutter solution for everyone.
Absolutely, because we're not cookies.
Right.
We're not this, cookies are supposed to be exactly the same, and we're not. We
Right.
have, one may have a little extra chocolate chip, one may have a little bit more of raisin in them if you like oatmeal raisins. So, so it's a little different. Every time the recipe may be a little bit different. So you're right, no cookie cutter. What is important is for you as the parent to know your children, right? This kid responds to this, they need this. And it's hard, right? That is the hard part of parenting. And you usually don't kind of get that flavor until it's more retrospective. You've had some years, you made some mistakes, and then you go, oh, this kid needs this amount of attention, this amount of eye time, they need a tutor. And then the other kid is kind of like, I don't want you hugging up on me. I'm trying to be out with my friends. I got this school thing. They're not trying to tell you what's going on. You got another one that wants you to hold their hand and wants to double check everything. Is this okay? Is this okay? Can I do this? Is this okay? And you're kind of like, my goodness, I'm telling you all the time you can do this, but every single time you want to double check. So you got a little perfectionist. So each one can have a different little flavor, right? And so you need to kind of recognize who they are, what they need, how do you get their needs met? And it's hard. And it's your words. I find your words as parents. Well, let me say this. I find that parents don't recognize how important you are to your children. They're giving us all this attitude when they're getting older. They want to do this. They think they know that. But they listen to you. They listen to you. They listen to the words that you say when you're happy. They listen to the words that you say when you are mad. They listen to the words that you say if you are being nasty. So you need to be mindful of that so that when they are, taking us here, we still need to be mindful of what comes out of our mouths because they are powerful and you never know what's going to stick and what's going to land and stay with them, right? And so, and kind of can shape kind of how they move forward. That is the scary, hard part of parenting, right? So that's the part that we have to ever be vigilant, even when you have adult kids like I do. I have a 23 and a 21. You are still trying to give them what they need, respond to them as they need you to respond to them, use the words that help push them, be successful, and motivate them. And it's different things for different kids.
Right.
And I mention that because in that mental health piece, I will never forget a really good psychiatrist and social worker duo mentioned it was a workshop that I went to about depression and anxiety. And they were like, it's parents. Parents, give your kids attention. At the end of the day, they listen to what you say and they value your opinion. Share it with them. They're going to give you, but still put it out there. Don't look for them to go, oh yeah, mom, dad, you're so right. Oh, I see the light. That's not going to happen. But just put it out there. Don't keep it to yourself because you're thinking they're not going to listen to me anyway.
That's right.
Right.
So depositing the seeds, they do listen.
They do listen. So you guys are super important in terms of their physical and their emotional well-being, in terms of providing them that support of, hey, I'm on your team and I am going to advocate for you as we navigate these learning differences together, right? And it's not, oh, you just need to buckle down. You just need to focus. I'm going to take all this stuff away so that you can focus. That's not it, y'all. That's not it. So I just want to mention that because I usually say that all the time to my family. So now I'm saying it to the SonRise community. Be mindful of that.
That's right. It's not the taking away, it's the giving more and more time. They really want time.
They want time. They do. They want your eyeballs. It's the same thing like when they're little. They want your eyeballs. They want your time.
Unconditional love. That's it.
Yes, and be mindful of what you say. And they
Mhm.
do take us there. And sometimes you want to be, but try to be mindful of what you say, because you don't know what's going to stick with them and impact how they view themselves and their relationship with you.
You are preaching to me right now with my, and you know both of mine. The big one went out to Colorado the other
Everybody.
day,
That's for
and
everybody.
no,
That's for
but I
me.
was just saying,
I'm preaching to myself.
yeah, I was working through, and he said something, and my neck flipped around. It's something that I quickly had to take back, and I said, you're not mean. What you just said was mean, and I don't like that, and to your point, he's 21 and halfway across the country, living his best life. But yeah, it can take us there, and our job is to not say you are this person, but what you just said, I don't like, or that behavior, I don't like. And I know that they know that, they hear that. There's another wonderful comment. Question. We know neurodiversity impacts learning. Can you please speak about impacts on social skills? Neurodiversity.
Yes. So let's use executive function. So let's talk about what that is and how that can impact social skills and ADHD. So a kiddo that has executive function has challenges organizing their brain. So for instance, you may know a child like this. I do. You have a kiddo and you want them to clean their room. Cleaning the room is a very complicated instruction. So let's say we have a 6-year-old. Marsha, go clean your room. One kid, and you've shown Marsha how to clean her room, okay? So you have given her the instruction. Cleaning the room to me means your bed is made, your shoes are in the closet, lined up. Your toys are off the floor and put away in the toy bin. Your books are on your bookshelf. So you've given the instruction and you've shown them how to do it. So you got to show them, okay? So now it's time for Marsha to do her own cleaning. Marsha, go clean your room. Marsha goes into her room, her little favorite doll's on the floor. She goes in, she picks it up, and then she forgot why she was in there. So she sits down and she is playing with Marsha, with her little baby doll's hair. And so you come in and you're like, Marsha, I told you to clean your room. And she looks at you as honest as all get out. I am. I picked up the baby doll and then her hair was messy. So then I had to brush it so that I can then put her in the toy bin. So in her mind, she is cleaning the room. She totally forgot the instruction because a kid with executive function disorder doesn't understand the patterns that you are assuming she knows. So what is the pattern? When I say clean your room, you should get a list that goes, oh, shoes go in the closet, pull up the sheet, put the pillow at the top, pick up my doll and my blocks and put it in the bin, put my books on the bookcase. She doesn't believe that pattern. Every time you say clean your room, she goes to the room, she'll pick up something, and then she forgets the pattern. So it takes a lot of repetition for her to believe the pattern. This is a kid that you have to say, Marsha, I need you to clean your room. You know what I want you to do? I want you to go in your room, put your pillow at the top of the bed, and then come back and see me. She'll do that. Mom, I put the pillow at the top of my bed. Okay, you know what? I want you to pull that sheet up to the pillow, and then I want you to come back and see me. Mom, I pulled the sheet up. What do you want? You know what? I want you to, your shoes that are on the floor, put them in the closet for me. And I want the same shoes next to each other. Okay, don't just throw them in there. So put the same shoe in the closet for me and then come back and see me. And they come back. Those toys on the floor, I want you to go and pick them up for me. Pick that baby doll up and put those blocks. I want you to put them in a bookcase and then come back and see me. Okay. And so that is a kid that with executive function, you have to teach them the pattern, and you do that over and over and over with every little thing. So that's why it can be exhausting. Okay. So a kid with attention deficit hyperactivity. So with attention deficit hyperactivity, those kids can be hyper, or they can be inattentive, or they can be both. And so an inattentive kiddo can kind of daydream. So they may go in their room, start cleaning up. So they believe the pattern, but then out the window, there's a butterfly and it's on the flower. Oh, I'm going to look at that. Oh, wow, that's really interesting. Look at that butterfly. Oh, and look at those different flowers. They are off and gone. All right. Distracted and inattentive. That can impact how they engage with friends, right? Because your social interaction is also kind of patterns. What is reciprocity? You're talking to them, they talk to you, you give a compliment, they give a compliment, you play something you want to play, they play something that you want to play, and they may not understand those patterns, or they may be inattentive and not understand the social cues because they're too busy looking out the window, looking down at the floor. So they're not understanding the social cues. So you may have to help them with that and be very explicit. These are things that we take for granted that just kind of living your life, you're going to figure out how to do. And for some kids, they don't. So they need for you to say things like, so when you go to the playground, and if a kiddo asks if they can play in the sandbox with you, what are some things that maybe you can say to them? You can ask them their name, like simple stuff. You can ask them where they go to school. You can ask them how old they are. And you may need to give that instruction over and over and over again if they have executive function, because patterns don't stick, right? So another way I like to explain that is I had a kiddo with executive function, and the way that it presented for her was we would play Monopoly all the time when the kids were little. And so the die, right, when she would roll, she would pick it up and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, put it down, then move her little, thingamajig, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Her younger sister could roll the die, recognize the pattern, and just move her piece. Every time the big would pick it up, 1, 2, 1, 2. She didn't believe the picture. And so she didn't have that pattern in her brain. And it took years for her to believe the pattern that, two black marks was 2, 1 was 1. If there was 1, she would pick it up, 1, put it down, move her piece, 1. Because she was like, oh, that's just kind of what you're supposed to do. She wasn't able to organize that pattern, right? That's what those kids do. And yes, that can impact how they engage with their peers.
Oh, I have 1,000 more questions on that. And I was laughing. You saw me smiling because I said, it's even more fun when you have a mom who has executive functions challenges. I have my own challenges in that very space and my own ADHD, which I didn't even realize I had until I was probably 40. And so I said, oh, that explains everything. It explains my whole life.
Yes. For us, for our generation, it was, you just felt like things were hard. I felt like things were just hard. Like I just had to study a lot.
I worked really hard.
That's right. What I had to do. Yes. You can be successful, but I was like, this is a workout. Like other people were able to do it and kind of go out and do other things. I needed to focus on, hey, I'm trying to be a doctor, so I don't have time for all these other things. It takes me a lot to get through this material. All right. So, so yes.
It's a big challenge.
You just needed to just get in there. They didn't have the supports.
Right.
And some made it and some didn't. What we're trying to do now is lift it so everyone can still make it with their learning differences, right?
And there's
We
no
all know
stigma
folks that
around
were
it.
super awesome, had a learning difference, and were not able to be successful. That
That's
is what
right.
we're trying to bring up now, right?
That's
And,
right.
and labeling it and saying this is what it is. This is the scaffolding that your kiddo should have. It shouldn't just be the folks that have this internal motivation are the only ones that are able to kind of survive a learning difference.
That's right. I love that. And I wish we were not out of time. I want to ask if you, thank you, first of all, such tremendous information this morning. Really helpful reminders that it's us, we have to change. We have to learn to use different words, and words have such power. So really appreciate everything you've shared, and want to ask if you'd be willing to come back to talk about other things you're seeing with your teenagers and those young adults, particularly around depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and the spike in suicides, which we're seeing everywhere, not even just in the US, but globally. I would love for you to come back and talk about that at some point, as I know we live in the same area, and the spike of depression, anxiety, and suicidal thinking, I've not experienced in my lifetime, and I'm sure you'd say the same. So would you be willing to come back in the future and talk about that?
Of course, anything for you, Kelly.
Okay. I appreciate you, and I love you so much. And I really, really do say that with all sincerity. Dr. Hay has been there through this quite a wonderful journey. It is a wonderful journey where our family has been blessed to learn how to deal with a lot of experiences. I'm not saying them as challenges. So appreciate that. And I wanted to just share two quick things before we wrap up this morning. One is a reminder for Sylvia Hay and her upcoming conference. She's offering $100 off for anybody that puts SonRise, spelled SonRise, and her link is in the most recent email blast. It's coming up in September. I have attended probably 10 years. It's fantastic. I really recommend it. And then second, I just mentioned suicidality, and there is a wonderful organization that we are partners with, Mob United, Mothers of Black Boys United. And there is a conversation this afternoon with some new research that's being unveiled about suicide and young people. And so Tierra and I will try to grab the visual for that, but it's today, the 27th. It's a Zoom meeting at 3:00 Eastern, and it's a new study on suicide in Black youth. So it could be very helpful. So I'm going to put that in. It's actually at the bottom of, no. Yeah, I will put it here in the
It's
chat.
in the chat. I did put it in the chat, Kelly.
Thank you, Tara. Of course you did. You're amazing. Thank you so much. So if anyone is interested in that, feel free to join that. That's Mothers of Black Boys, Mob United. DePelsha Magruder, who's the CEO, has been here as well. She's fantastic. But thank you again for being here. Thank you, Dr. Hay, for all the incredible information you shared. So appreciate you. Look forward to having you back in the future. And everyone have an incredible, incredible Sunday. And Tierra will close us out in a prayer right now.
Sure. So, Father God, we thank you for this SonRise Sunday. We thank you for Kelly and the Lawson family again for providing this platform. We thank you for Dr. Christi Hay for sharing so much wisdom regarding learning differences. Lord, may her words inspire parents listening to this message both now and later to pay careful attention to their children's needs and to be empowered to act as advocates. Lord, we pray for the rise of culturally competent resources and dedicated funding to help those who need it most. We pray that families struggling with learning differences are surrounded by your peace as they navigate what sometimes are difficult processes. We pray your blessing over each and every person on this call and their families. May you have a powerful, positive, peaceful, and productive week in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Wonderful. Thank you, Tierra. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Dr. Hay. And we will see you next weekend, Labor Day weekend. We will be here bright and early Sunday morning. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Thank you.